All right, the mile marker question 4 is asking you to write the equation of the circle in standard form by completing the square. So we really have a lot of algebra in this type of problem. So our first goal is to get all of the variable terms on the left and move any constant terms over to the right. So the first thing that we would want to do here is add 100 to both sides of our equation. And that's going to have the effect of getting rid of the constant term on the left. So when you rewrite this, we now have, x squared plus y squared plus 8y plus 4x equals 100. All right. The next thing is we want to group our x's in parentheses together and our y's in parentheses together. So I'm going to group x squared plus 4x. Oops, that does not look like a 4, sorry. X squared plus 4x is going to go in its own set of parentheses. And then y squared plus 8y in the other. And you really could have done this in the last step when we move that 100 over, but I like to break it down in case there's a step that you're struggling with. All right, so the next step is the complete the square step. What we need to do is that for anything that's not a perfect square, we're going to complete that and make it a perfect square trinomial. So what I mean by that is we're going to start with x squared plus 4x, and we're going to think, what number can we add here? What constant term that would make this a perfect square trinomial? So we're going to look at our middle term here. It should be the square root of the first term, the square root of the last, multiplied by 2. So the x in our middle term comes from x squared. I really need to pay attention to the 4. I'm going to cut that in half. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then I'm going to square that. 2 squared is 4. So when I complete that square, I now have x squared plus 4x plus 4. If you're struggling with completing the square, see your math teacher for some individual practice on that. I'm not going to go too deep on that in this video because it might take a while, but if I have time, maybe I can make a completing the square video. Okay, we're also going to do the same thing to y squared, to that expression. So y squared plus 8y. When we look at the middle term, the y comes from y squared. The 8 is made up of the number 2 and the square root of our third term. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So we end up adding 16. Now, we have to be really careful because I can't just go adding numbers into equations. I have to balance my equation. And whatever I added on the left, I also have to add on the right. All right, so now in our next step, we're going to factor our trinomials and simplify the right side, and then we'll have our equation. So we're going to just do the shortcut for factoring. Again, if you need help with factoring perfect square trinomials, that's almost a separate topic. We can certainly go over that. So we're going to take the square root of the first term. The square root of x squared is x. The sign, so what I mean by sign, is this a plus or a minus here? It's a plus, so I'm going to have a plus that looks like a T. Sorry, sometimes my iPad stylus slips a little bit. And then we're going to take the square root of the last term. So the square root of 4 is 2. So this becomes x plus 2 squared when you factor it. All right, we're going to do the same thing over here. The square root of y squared is y. The sign in the middle of the middle term is positive or plus. And then the square root of 16 is 4. So this factors to y plus 4 squared. And then on the right side of that equal sign, we just need to add those numbers up, and we get 120, which is our radius squared. So this is our final answer for this problem.